When we look at surveys on what employers are looking for in the workplace, what you'll normally find is workplaces where there is more productive conflict and less unproductive conflict, where employees are motivated, where they're showing initiative. And you know what a common thread is among all of those? Is the ability to listen in the workplace. Stay tuned. Today, we're going to talk about how to improve listening in the workplace. Today, I want to look at 7 particular things you can do to improve listening skills in the workplace. Stay tuned because at the end of the video today, I also want to talk about a free e-course that I want to offer you on Emotional Intelligence Roadmap, which really explores all the different elements that go into emotional intelligence. The workplace is a web of relationships. When you think about what happens at work, it's one conversation after another conversation. And because conversation is at the core of what our work lives are about, listening becomes incredibly important. So today, let's explore 7 ways that we can improve our listening. Number 1, remove distractions. We live in a distracted world. When you think about it, really multitasking is something we do each and every day, and yet science is conclusive in this. There is no such thing as multitasking. We can't do it because what's happening is we are paying attention to one thing and then we lose attention and pay it to another thing. So if we're going to listen, we have to remove the fallacy that we can multitask and really hone in to the person. You know, I find this out personally. I remember I was CEO of a company, and every Friday I'd have a meeting with the bookkeeper. She would come in, and I thought I could multitask. And so what I did is, as she was giving me a report, I would be on kind of the computer on the side, and I would look at her, and I thought I was doing great, really keeping my eye. But of course I was distracted because I kept going back and forth. And eventually one day, she took me aside and she said, you know, when you do that, I feel you're really not listening to me and you don't respect me. And that was not my intention. I learned such a great lesson that day, that if I really want to listen to someone, I need to shut down all the distractions and focus in. Because not only will you notice the difference, but more importantly, the person in front of you will be able to tell the difference as well. Number 2 is create a safe environment. You know, some conversations are just passing conversations. We're talking about the weather or what we did this weekend, but some conversations are a little more important. And it's important for us to realize that the person feels physically and emotionally safe. Now, what do I mean by that? Physically safe is the space in which we are having the conversation conducive to that conversation, especially if it is private. Is the space private? And secondly, emotionally safe. Does the person feel that you're emotionally connected to them? Have you created a space where they can emotionally connect? You know, sometimes a person might stop you in the corridor and begin a conversation. And then all of a sudden you think you're having this casual conversation and it changes and it becomes a much deeper conversation. And at that point, it's really important to assess where you're at, to look around you. Is this the place for the conversation? And to assess if you've got time for the conversation. And if the answer is no to both of those, it's a really good practice to say, you know what, let's just stop here. I can sense that this is an important conversation. So let's find a different place for this or a different time when I can be fully engaged because I really want to listen to everything you're saying. Number 3 is the power of the question. Ask questions. You know, sometimes, Stephen Covey says, we listen with the intent only to respond. And unfortunately, that is a habit a lot of us get into. But a really good question, or a really good practice is to be curious and to ask other questions. Great leaders ask questions. And the temptation, of course, is always to react to what we are hearing in the moment. It's really nice just to stop, be curious, and perhaps ask one more question. I remember working with a client a few years ago, Mary, and there was a particular person that just pressed her buttons. And he always would have excuses, etc., whenever he was reporting to her. And whenever that happened, she found herself reacting, wanting to respond. But we went over this practice of perhaps inserting a question before you respond. And so the next time what she tried to do, whenever he would say something, she would find herself getting annoyed, but she became aware of it. And instead of responding or making a comment or a response, she came up with the best question she could ask in that moment. What she reported back was it began to transform some of the conversations they were having, and she also realized that she was getting data that she never realized that she had missed before. Overall, it improved their relationship because it improved their conversation. Number 4 follows up from the asking the questions because it's the ratio, the important ratio. What ratio, you ask? It's the talk-listen ratio. It's really important in any conversation to become aware, am I talking more or am I listening more? Now, there's some conversations where we're the ones doing the talking. But there are other conversations where really what's called of us in the moment is to listen, and we find ourselves or catch ourselves talking way more than we should. So it's really important in the moment to realize, what is the situation we're in? Is this a situation where I should be talking more or listening more? And if it is, then become self-aware. Help yourself kind of judge in this moment. Should I hold back? Should I talk less? You know, one of the most glorious things when it comes to a conversation is leaving some silence, letting the person realize that you're leaving them a space and a pause so they can talk. So mind the ratio and make sure you're getting the ratio correct. Number 5 is, are you coming with an open mind? We are human beings, and as human beings, I'm afraid we love to make judgments. We love to make assessments. And none of us are free from bias. And so therefore, as we go into a conversation, we have to really ask ourselves, be truthful, be honest with ourselves. What judgments am I making? What prejudgments have I made? What biases have I made about the person? Remember I talked about Mary a little bit earlier, that she was having difficulty with this person who kept making excuses. You know, she also realized that she had a few prejudices as well, a few biases about this person. She almost had made it where the expectation was that what she would hear today would be this. And when we come to a conversation with bias, or we've prejudged what a person is about to say, we're not listening because we've already made a judgment. Now, it's impossible to become bias-free. We all carry biases. But at least if we're aware of the bias, at least if we're aware that what we think about this person is, then I think we can also begin to catch ourselves and also to ask ourselves internally, am I really being objective here? How much a role is my bias playing? Because if the more objective we can become, the better the conversation is going to be. Number 6 is, can we feel what they are feeling? That's right, this is all about empathy. You know, empathy is one of the most important leadership skills. And in any conversation, if a person really wants to feel that they've been listened to, empathy is at the core. Now, you don't have to feel the emotions that they're going through, but we certainly have to understand what emotions they're going through and what it's like to be in their shoes at this particular moment. So incredibly important, therefore, is, can I really listen with my heart? Can I begin to understand what that person is going through? Can I understand what they're feeling? Can I connect with that and view their reality from that? Because to the extent that we can, the deeper and the better connection. Finally, number 7, it's our body language. What does our body language say in this moment? Does our body language say that we are engaged and we are listening? You know what it's like. You know exactly what it's like when a person is disengaged. There's very little emotion from them. They're kind of sitting back. They're really not following. And you get this energy, you get this sense that they're just not listening. Whereas if you've got someone who is actively listening to you, what you normally tend to find is the person moves in a little bit closer. You normally find them nodding in agreement or even making sounds like, uh-huh, wow, little commentary as you go along. And that energy helps the engagement. In fact, it's vital. You know, one of the exercises that I do in training is that I have people have a conversation about something that's important to them. And in the first round, I make the person who's the listener just be deadpan, say nothing, do nothing, have zero body language. And the commentary I get back from people who go through that experience is this: it's so difficult to continue the conversation. They just want to stop. Such is the power of engagement, such is the power of body language to draw us in. So whenever it comes to a conversation where we really want the person to know that we are listening, it's important to ask, is our body language showing that we're listening? Is our head nods showing that we're listening? Is our posture showing that we're listening? Because if it is, then what we're going to find is that conversation will go deeper and be more impactful in every single case. Today's all been about listening and the core importance of listening in the workplace and how that can transform relationships. I talked at the beginning about a free e-course that I'd like to invite you to. It's called Emotional Intelligence Roadmap, and it really gets into some of the skills we've been talking about today, about self-awareness, about managing our emotions, and about using those emotions for deeper connections. You'll find a connection to that free e-course below. I invite you to go, enroll in it, and enjoy it. And if you've really enjoyed this video today, I invite you to visit the next video, which talks about how to improve our listening skills.